early 1959, a group of adventurous university students who loved skiing decided to team up for a daring expedition. Their plan was to camp deep in the Soviet Union's Ural Mountains, about a 300-kilometer journey through one of the most remote and unforgiving wildernesses on Earth. They would trek through the snow-covered Urals, reach a specific point, and then return to their starting location. The group was led by 23-year-old radio engineering student Igor Dyatlov. Every member of the team was highly skilled and experienced, but unfortunately, neither their expertise nor their preparation was enough to protect them from the brutal force of nature. What was meant to be an exciting adventure turned into a terrifying tragedy, one that remains partly unexplained to this day. Welcome everyone, and today I'm going to tell you the story of the Dyatlov Pass incident. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss next week's story. And let's try to hit 100 likes before the next video drops. The team consisted of 9 members, not counting their leader, Igor Dyatlov. On January 8th, the group received official permission from the Regional Sports Committee to begin their expedition as a team of 10. This made their journey fully legal and documented. Their main goal was to reach and climb Mount Otterton, which lies between the Ural Mountains and the frozen Siberian wilderness. What's terrifying is that the mountain where the disaster would later happen was only about 10 kilometers away from Otterton, meaning they didn't even reach their real destination. The tragedy unfolded in an area called Koletsiakal, a name taken from the local Mansi tribe's language. It means the dead mountain. And it's not because the mountain is cursed or haunted, but because it's completely barren and isolated from the world. In fact, if it wasn't for this incident, almost no one outside a few local tribes would have even known this mountain existed. The route chosen by the team was officially classified as a Category 3 trail, which in mountaineering terms means moderately difficult, but with no immediate life-threatening dangers. Climbers could even make the journey without ropes, just their hands and experience. But the real challenge wasn't the trail, it was the timing. They chose to do this in February, the harshest month of the year, with brutal weather and freezing temperatures. Still, the team didn't seem worried. They were fully equipped with food, gear, and winter clothing. Their confidence was high, maybe a little too high. Every member already held Category 2 hiking certificates, and this expedition was supposed to earn them the Category 3 certification once they returned. So for them, this wasn't just a trip, it was their final test. One of the team members, Ural, started feeling sick early in the journey. He tried to continue, but the pain was too much, so he turned back and returned to the town of Ivdel. The remaining 9 continued on without him. Before the group left the last inhabited village, Dyatlov made an agreement with their sports club. As soon as they completed the trek and returned to civilization, he would send a telegram to confirm their safety. According to their plans, that message was supposed to arrive by February 12th. But when Yuri got sick and decided to head back, Dyatlov told him that the trip might take longer than expected because of weather conditions. So when February 12th passed and no message came, no one panicked. But one day passed, then another. February 15th came, then the 18th. Still no word from the team. That's when the families of the missing students started to worry and demanded a search operation. A rescue team of volunteers from their university and sports club was sent first. Soon after, the Soviet army and police forces joined the search, and even helicopters were dispatched to scan the area from the sky. They searched for days until February 26th, when they discovered something horrifying. They found the campsite. The tents were torn apart and half buried in snow. Everything was scattered. All their personal belongings, boots, jackets, equipment, were still inside the camp, untouched. Mikhail Sharavin, one of the student volunteers and the first rescuer to reach the scene, said the tent was ripped from the inside and covered in snow. Investigators noticed footprints leading away from the tent. Bare footprints or only in socks, and some showing just one boot, like they had escaped. Some were even wearing torn jackets and boots taken off their dead friends. An official investigation committee was formed to figure out what happened. At first, most of the bodies showed no external injuries that could clearly explain their deaths. So the initial conclusion was simple. They died from hypothermia. But that explanation didn't last long. One of the victims, Rustem Slobodin, had a fractured skull. Investigators didn't know what to make of it. But when the last four bodies were examined, the case took a dark and disturbing turn. Some of them had massive fatal injuries. Lyudmila Dubinina and Semyon Zolotaryov both had their ribs smashed in. The forensic expert said the force required to cause these injuries is equivalent to a car crash. Yet, there were no visible wounds on the outside, no bruises or cuts to explain such violent internal damage. Dubinina's condition was the most shocking. Along with her shattered ribs, her eyes were missing. Her tongue was torn out and parts of her face and skull were gone. Investigators suggested it might be due to her lying face down in a stream of melting snow, but many refused to accept that explanation. Some claimed it was the work of a wild animal, but that didn't make sense either. No animal carefully removes eyes and a tongue and then buries bodies under 4 meters of snow. In the end, the official government report concluded that the group died due to an unknown compelling natural force, no suspects, no clear cause. And in May 1959, the case was closed. All documents, photos, and reports were sealed in secret archives for decades, until many years later, the investigation was reopened again in 1999. And that's where things get even stranger. Almost 50 years after the tragedy, the Dyatlov Foundation was created to honor the memory of the team. Led by Yuri Kuntsevich, the foundation continued investigating the case, trying to finally uncover what caused the mysterious deaths of the hikers. And of course, with a disaster this strange, theories started to appear everywhere. More than 70 different explanations were suggested. Obviously, this video isn't long enough to cover them all, so let's talk about the most famous ones. 1. Attack by the Mansi tribes. Some people claim the hikers were attacked by the Mansi, the indigenous people living near the area. The mountain was considered sacred, and outsiders were not allowed to cross certain parts of it. But this theory doesn't hold up. There were no footprints around the campsite except those of the hikers themselves. And the Mansi were known to chase trespassers away, not kill them brutally. They'd never done anything like this before. 2. Avalanche theory. The official explanation. This is the only theory officially accepted by the Soviet and later Russian government. The idea is that while the hikers were sleeping, a sudden avalanche hit their tent. They panicked, cut their way out from the inside, and ran into the freezing night without time to put on their clothes. The 4 bodies found deep in the forest may have died looking for help. But this theory has problems. No reports of an avalanche that night. More than 100 expeditions visited the same area before, and none ever experienced an avalanche there. The slope wasn't steep enough to send tons of snow crashing into the tent. The footprints around the camp were still visible. An avalanche would have buried everything. And the biggest question? Who sleeps in minus 25 degrees Celsius inside a tent without winter clothing on? And even if we accept the avalanche idea, how do you explain Dubinina's missing tongue or their eyes being removed? 3. Secret military experiments. The most popular theory among the public. The hikers accidentally wandered into a secret Soviet military test during the Cold War. Some believe the army was testing new weapons in the Ural Mountains and Siberian wilderness. The team saw something they shouldn't have, so they were killed, and the scene was staged to look like an accident. This theory spread widely. Books, documentaries, even ex-investigators supported it. But critics ask, if the military really tortured them, why leave the bodies in the open snow instead of hiding them? Why were some injuries like eye removal and tongue loss so bizarre and not typical of military operations? 4. The Yeti theory. And of course, it wouldn't be a true mystery without a supernatural theory. Some said the hikers were attacked by the Yeti, or abominable snowman, a mythical creature said to live in the snowy mountains of Asia. According to local legends, it's a massive ape-like being, around 3 meters tall, walking upright like a human. This theory claims the group disturbed the creature's territory, so it attacked and killed them. But obviously, there's no real evidence for this. No tracks, no fur, no signs of a struggle with such a creature. Still, the theory spread like wildfire because people needed an explanation for something that made absolutely no sense. And just like the other theories, We go back to the same question. There were no footprints, no sign of anyone else being there, except the hikers themselves. 5. Alien encounter theory. The final theory, and probably the most bizarre, claims that the Dyatlov group had an encounter with extraterrestrial beings, specifically what conspiracy theorists call Type 4 aliens, the kind linked to human abduction stories. Supporters of this idea say that several reports mentioned glowing orange orbs floating in the sky over the mountains on the night of the incident and even the night before. They believe the missing body parts, like tongues and eyes, were removed for testing or examination. These glowing orbs were supposedly seen by local Mansi tribespeople, other skiing groups around 50 kilometers south of the site, residents of Ivdel, the town the hikers departed from. Some say the lights appeared from February until the end of March. And here's where it gets even stranger. According to investigation notes, traces of radiation were found on some of the hikers' clothes. A police officer named Lev Nikitich, who led part of the investigation, later said that he and his team saw these glowing objects in the sky themselves. But he also said they received direct orders to keep quiet and never mention it in official reports or to journalists. This claim only became public decades later. In a published article in 1990, case reopened, but no answers. In 2020, the Russian government reopened the case. A spokesperson appeared at a press conference holding a 400-page report, claiming that everything that happened was caused by a natural phenomenon, whether it was an avalanche, hurricane winds, or something similar. They dismissed all other testimonies. The lights, the radiation, the missing body parts. But most people didn't believe the official story, and so the Dyatlov Pass mystery was once again closed on paper, but not in people's minds. Outro, and with that, we've reached the end of today's story. What do you think really happened at Dyatlov Pass? Do you believe it was nature, a military cover-up, something paranormal, or maybe something we'll never understand? Tell me your theories in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves mysterious stories. Your support is what keeps us going. See you next time with a story even stranger than this one. Stay curious and stay safe.